In tonight's headlines, Chief Executive John Lee greets Indonesian industry leaders who are looking to take their businesses to Hong Kong. The US Navy sends a patrol aircraft past the Taiwan Strait just hours after Defense Minister Dong Jun held talks with his US counterpart Lloyd Austin. And Britain is one step closer to implementing a gradual smoking ban.
In a bid to explore business opportunities in Southeast Asia, Chief Executive John Lee embarked on a visit to Singapore, Indonesia, and Malaysia last summer. The SAR leader met industry leaders in Jakarta, who promised a reciprocal visit to Hong Kong this year. True to their promise, about 20 Indonesian business representatives arrived in the city yesterday and held talks with Lee at government headquarters this morning. The meeting was set up by the Indonesian Employers Association, which intends to help businesses from the Southeast Asian powerhouse set up family offices in the SAR.
There are many businesses that are not yet familiar with what Hong Kong have to offer and how Hong Kong can be help going into even mainland China. I think the chief executive explained, that even though there are many businesses also going directly to with China, but actually there's added value by having Hong Kong as the hub. So this is something that we are trying to work on.
Kamdani pointed out that the Indonesia infrastructure, logistics, and finance sectors have expressed interest in expanding their footprint to Hong Kong. She brushed off any negative impact from a scandal surrounding Dubai Prince Sheikh Ali Rashid Ali Said Al Maktoum, who delayed plans to set up a family office in the SAR.
We don't really see scandals that's happening as a big. I think a lot of the businesses are very much forward-driven, looking for opportunities here. So we're not looking into specific, concern on specific scandal and so forth.
The chairwoman also praised the legislation of the Domestic National Security Law, saying it would bring stability to the city. The delegation will head to Shenzhen tomorrow. Janice Low, Cable News. The Coronus court was told today that a 44-year-old woman who was the victim of a medical blunder 7 years ago had directly died of sepsis. Chang Kwai-si, a mother of two, suffered liver failure after doctors failed to notice she was a hepatitis B carrier and prescribed the wrong drugs. Pathologist Gavin Chan, who conducted an autopsy on Tang, said the patient went down with pneumonia following a liver transplant, causing bacteria to enter her bloodstream. He also relayed his condolences to Tang's daughter, saying the past few years had not been easy for her family. The inquest continues for a fourth day tomorrow and is scheduled to last 3 weeks.
Apart from fostering economic partnerships, President Xi Jinping and his U.S. counterpart Joe Biden also agreed to resume military dialogue when the leaders met in San Francisco last November. In line with that pledge, their defense chiefs held direct talks for the first time in 18 months. Defense Minister Dong Jun, who assumed his post in December, exchanged views with U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin via video conference. Dong was quoted as telling Austin that both countries should seek ways to get along with each other. Going forward, the two nations should also cherish peace, prioritize stability, and build trust. Dong also laid down Beijing's red line, describing the Taiwan issue as the core of China's core interest. The People's Liberation Army will not sit back and tolerate acts which supported the island's independence, he said, while also urging the U.S. to respect China's sovereignty in the South China Sea. In response, Austin reaffirmed Washington's commitment to the One China policy. A Pentagon statement also revealed the two leaders discussed the war between Ukraine and Russia, as well as North Korea's recent military activity. Just hours after the conversation, a U.S. Poseidon patrol aircraft flew past the sensitive Taiwan Strait in the first such mission in 4 months. The U.S. Navy insisted the plane operated within international airspace, where the navigational rights and freedoms of all nations must be upheld. Beijing accused the Americans of trying to stir up hype and scrambled PLA fighter jets to monitor the patrol aircraft. Anna Chan, Cable News. There were emotional scenes in Yangon, the largest city of Myanmar, as hundreds of people gathered outside a prison, hoping to reunite with their family members and friends. It is customary for Myanmar's rulers to issue pardons on New Year's Day, and around 3,000 inmates were released this year. The military also confirmed that former Democratic leader Aung San Suu Kyi has been moved to house arrest. The 78-year-old Nobel laureate, who has been imprisoned since her government was ousted in a coup in 2021, was reportedly in poor health. A junta spokesman described the transfer as a precautionary move to prevent heat stroke among elderly prisoners. Suu Kyi is serving a 27-year sentence on a variety of convictions in the capital Naypyidaw, where the temperature hit 39 degrees Celsius in recent days.
British lawmakers have passed a landmark bill which moved the country one step closer to a complete smoking ban. Under the Tobacco and Vapes Bill, the legal age for purchasing cigarettes, currently at 18, will increase by 1 year every year.
The ayes to the right, 383, the noes to the left, 67. So the ayes have it, the ayes have it.
Proposed by Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, the policy makes it illegal to sell cigarettes to those born after January 1, 2009, which would amount to a lifetime ban on smoking. The bill also covers disposable vapes and imposes stricter restrictions on flavors and packaging, aimed at enticing youngsters to pick up the habit. The new rules apply to all duty-free shops in Britain, although it remains legal to bring back cigarettes from abroad. The bill passed its second reading and is scheduled for final approval in June. Opponents have voiced concerns of a potential black market and asked whether it had restricted people's freedoms. A similar ban was proposed in New Zealand in 2022, but was eventually scrapped by Prime Minister Christopher Luxon. Cheryl Yun, Cable News. Just 1 day after China beat forecasts by announcing its economy grew 5.3% in the first quarter, the International Monetary Fund was unfazed with its own predictions. In its latest World Economic Outlook report, the IMF has maintained its earlier China estimate of 4.6% growth this year and 4.1% in 2025. The forecasts are a fraction lower than Beijing's target of 5% growth in 2024 and the actual 5.2% improvement last year. The IMF said despite stimulus measures from policymakers, the troubled property sector is hindering growth and could potentially trigger a public finance crisis.
Some of the indicators we have and that were released even in the last few days do seem to point out that that weakness will persist. With an economy that has potentially still relatively weak domestic demand, but is growing, then there will be an increased reliance on the export sector. And that is something that in the context of very tight trade tensions could be complicated.
Globally, the IMF now anticipates growth of 3.2% for the coming year, 0.1% higher than its previous estimate.
The global economy continues to display remarkable resilience, with growth holding steady and inflation declining. But many challenges still lie ahead.
The IMF expects the U.S. economy to grow by 2.7% this year, a notable 0.6% increase from its January predictions. The optimism was based on stronger than expected employment and consumer spending. But high interest rates and geopolitical tensions, especially in the Middle East, could derail the global recovery, the body warned. Cheryl Yun, Cable News.